Okay, so I'm going to be talking about what is service design. This is a new topic to me. I just started kind of falling into it, I guess, through blog feeds. So I don't know too much about it, but I know enough to give a 5-minute talk. So let's start with breaking down service design into components. What is design, first of all? Most people think design, they think graphical, pretty, all that type of stuff. That image there, you can't really see it too well, but it says design is beautiful. That's kind of the general notion that people think of as design. But here's a nice little quote from Clement Mach. He says, design is not rocket science, it's a social science. You're looking at the components that go into design, like what gets people to react emotionally, what gets the history, music, all of that. Now what is service? So the typical image of service is a nice smiling face helping you get something done. The chart there is like living service is like the ideal where it's constantly there. Then you've got people who are just kind of doing their job, they don't really care. Service design is about giving people what they want, the way they want it, when they need it, but it's more than that. This is just kind of the general overview of like what service is. Kind of, pretty typical at first, but it gets a little bit more interesting once I get to the next slide here. So everything is a service. So service isn't just about interacting with customer service, interacting with the customer. It's about everything that goes behind it. So you've got the internal IT support. A lot of people don't necessarily think of that as service, especially like intranet. People don't invest in their intranet. It's just there. Also education. This is going more into like what service design is about. You create these service blueprints where you figure out where all the components fit into the system. There's what the customer or user actually sees and what they don't see, but they all interact in a way that gets them to have the best service possible. This is an actor network map. It's a way of envisioning how all these components of service fit together so you can have a better idea of where maybe your service is failing the customer. It might not be at the front level. Also, everything interacts. So while your person talking to the customer may be doing just fine, again, like the person in the back, like the intranet of your company or whatever other IT solution might not be serving the customer correctly. And also the technology itself is a social actor in the system. The technology interacts with the customer, the technology interacts with the other people in the system. It's serving a role that creates it's part of the service product. The experience economy, this is based on the work of Joseph Pine and James Gilmore. Basically, this is the first two bullet points are just traditional economy. So it's about products, it's about something physical like the iPhone. Whereas experience economy, the experience itself is an event. So it's what's actually happening, what the user is actually doing. So Starbucks experience, when you go into Starbucks, everything that goes on, like people remembering the drink that you ordered, the barista is like making a little fancy saying. Don Norman, who those of you in HCI know, he's moving into the service design field too. But he talks about how in service design, when you're doing it, it's not about creating prototypes, it's not about creating a physical thing, but it's about envisioning the time. So he says storyboards and movies are the best way of doing that. Software service model. This is just another way of envisioning some of that blueprint stuff where you've got the customer kind of on the outer side, but then you have all these things interacting on the inner side. And like if any of those components aren't working properly, if they're not structured properly, it's going to fall apart. One success of service design is Netflix. They actually decided to eliminate their email customer service representatives in favor of phone service. And they did this through a lot of research that people don't like interacting with email. They want to interact through phones. And it really helped them compete more with Blockbuster. This is another quote. This is Dan Saffer. He's another big interaction design guy. He talks about service moments. Service moments are these moments where they really think into the customer or the user that this is great. So kind of to sum this up, service design is all about the context, the content, and the activities. So it's about where you're doing it, what's going on, or like what the product is, the content, and the activities that are going on within that space. So a couple famous names looking at service design, just so people know this isn't like just some crazy buzzword. IDEO, which is one of the top design forums, Adaptive Path, which is a top design consulting firm. Don Norman, UC Berkeley iSchool is on the education side and like live work or live work in the UK. And some resources, these are the blogs two of the blogs I've been pulling stuff from, and also 2 books that you might want to look in. The third one is interesting because it's all about how you shouldn't be focusing just on efficiency, which is a typical business model, but you should be looking at the actual service itself. Are there any questions about this?